Perfect. Okay, so as I previously said, during this session, the main objective is to talk about how to study for the PMP in a smart way, because as I was saying during the introduction, we have a lot of material out there, but if you have to focus yourself to study all the material that's available, you're definitely going to be overwhelmed, you're going to be stressed up, and you are not going to enjoy the process. So what I'm going to give you today is to help you in this process, to make sure that you enjoy it, to make sure that you are able to study the right way. I'm going to show you certain things that you're going to avoid in your preparation, and also certain things that you need to include in your preparation to make sure that you have this PMP from the very first trial. So obviously this presentation was made by Ricardo and I, so I'll be the one to be presented to you today. And the agenda is simple. We are just going to talk about PMP a little bit, just to have a brief introduction. We are going to talk about how to efficiently prepare for the PMP, and we are going to have 2 or 3 questions that we're going to answer together at the end. And at the end, we are going to have a session of question and answer. If anyone has any questions, we can definitely answer that. So right now, and I just want to say the presentation is going to be interactive. It's not going to be me giving you information, but we are going to communicate. So it's really going to be interactive. And if you have any question, if there's any misunderstanding, if you want to add anything, just feel free to do it. You don't need to raise your hand. You can just cut me and just move on. What shows that I'm not going to lose my ideas. So just feel free to just open your mic and just speak at any time. So, without much ado, we are going to launch, and I will just give the floor to Rico to talk a little bit about PMP Route.
Okay, thank you, William. So, William and I are working mainly on coaching people, helping people get PMP certified, no matter where you are at the moment. Let's say if you have done your 35-hour course or not, your application, or you just need to do questions with somebody, we are here to help. So that's basically a quick introduction. We both have a master's degree, experience in project management, and also PMP certified. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Rico. So now we are going to enter exactly what brought us here this evening, is to talk about how to prepare for the PMP. And the first thing that I'm going to say, you guys must have heard it already. PMP exam is not a memorizing test, okay? Please don't memorize. There's no need for you to memorize questions, memorize answers, and everything. It really doesn't help, because PMP is based on judgment and decision making, and it changes all the time. That's why you have to understand and have what we call the PMI mindset. Memorizing definitions is not enough. Here, underline the word enough, okay? When they say enough, it means that you have to do it, but it is not enough. So there are other things that you need to add to the memorizing that you have to do. It's very important for you to understand that you need to know the definitions, you need to know the tools, you need to know the formulas and all the different things that appear in the PMI material, in the PMP material. You need to know it, but it is not important for you to try to memorize it without understanding. Okay, that's very important, and I always like insisting on it. You need to know. You need to know the definitions, know the tools, know the formulas that are involved here, know the different things that are related to the PMP material, but not in a way that you are going to memorize it, but you should make sure that you understand it. And once you understand that, will be able to implement it while answering your questions. That's exactly where PMP is waiting for you. How are you going to implement the different notions that you know while answering questions? If you don't know those notions, then there's no way you'll be able to answer the questions. So before talking about the PMI mindset, we need first of all to understand our definitions, our tools, and everything that's related to the PMP material. Okay, and obviously the questions are testing your leadership, decision logic. We are going to be having situational questions, so it's important for you to understand this, and that this is the first thing I want you to understand. If you have to take something away from this session, don't memorize questions, don't memorize answer. Understand your definitions, understand your tools, understand your formulae, understand the different things that you see in your PMP material, but don't try to cram them, don't try to memorize them, because if you just memorize them, you won't be able to answer questions correctly. Obviously at the end, if you need this presentation, we can definitely send you to you guys. Okay, so I'm not going to be reading point after point, I'm just going to be explaining as we go. The next thing, once you have once you have understood the material that the PMI expects you to know when you want to write the PMP, the next thing is to understand what we call the PMI mindset. This is very important because each time that you are writing a particular certificate, the the governing body of that particular certificate has particular things that they are testing. For example, if you are writing the French test, what we call TCF Canada, okay, the body that governs TCF Canada, they are not going to test your level in French. They are going to test particular things that they expect from you. It's the same thing with the PMI mindset. There are certain things that the PMI is going to test from you as a project manager. So here, you should not answer questions based on your experience, based on how you do it in your enterprise, based on how you think that things to be should be done. No, you should answer questions based on the PMI mindset. And generally, when we talk about PMI mindset, what comes into it? First, you have to think as a servant leader. Okay, a servant leader is simply someone that's there to help others to improve, to remove impediments, to help them to be more efficient, to coach them and everything. Okay, that's the mindset that PMI expects you to have as a PMP certified project manager. It's not for you to be a boss, for you to be aggressive towards people, for you to be authoritative. No, no. The first thing that PMI expects from you as a PMP certified project manager is for you to be a servant leader, a servant coach, someone that's there to help others, to make them improve, to remove their impediments. So each time that you fall on a question, that's what should be in your mind. How can I help this person? How can I remove the impediments? What are the analyses that I can do to make sure that people improve in their way of working? How can I help them to improve their efficiency? That's what should be in your mind. You should not be thinking about punishing people. You should not be thinking about putting people aside. You should not be thinking about working alone. No, that's not what the PMI expects from a PMP certified project manager. And also, you should be proactive. Okay, when you are doing your plan, you should always be proactive and not reactive. So when answering questions, always keep that in mind. Okay, that the solution should be kind of proactive. It's very important. And collaboration is the key. The PMI expects a project manager to be someone that is able to collaborate with people. Okay, we all know that in a project, the values are delivered by people. The tasks that you have in a project are being executed by people. So can you do it alone? No, you will need people. And if you are not able to collaborate with people, then you won't be able to have a good outcome from your project, because the value delivered by a project greatly depends on the people that are going to execute the different tasks. So that's why, as a project manager, each time that you are answering a question related to PMP certification, you should first be thinking about collaboration, working with other people. And also, a project is there to deliver value. So, when you are answering questions in PMP certification, what are the things that favor the deliverance of values? That's what you need to focus on to deliver value. Okay, it's really important for you to take that into consideration when you'll be answering questions. Let me take a simple example. I have seen many questions where they ask you that, okay, we have a task, okay, task one, which has a high value and a high risk, and we have task two that has a low value and a low risk. With which task should we prioritize in our project? When you have to answer such questions in your mind, always put in your mind that you have to start with a task that has high values. In your mind, you have to put that you should have to know that you have to start with tasks that has high risk, because the PMI mindset focuses on the fact that we should start with high values and high risk in such a way that if the risk has to appear, you should be able to handle it in the beginning of the project so that you can easily adjust yourself. Very important for you to be able to keep that. We say that a project manager is a servant leader. As a servant leader, if something happens in your project, you should first try to do some analysis. You should first try to understand the root cause. You should first try to look for certain solutions to the problems, to the impediments that you have, to the obstacles that you find in your project before thinking of escalating. So whenever you fall on a question in the PMI exam, escalation is not generally the first option. You should first of all analyze the situation, look for a solution yourself, try to do one or two things before you can think about escalating it to your supervisor or to whosoever. And the last thing related to not the last thing that the last thing I'm going to talk about, because there are also other things related to the PMI mindset. It's you have to coach. You have to coach. I should not be thinking about punishing. Okay, you really have to coach to help people to be better in what they are doing. So that's it about the PMI mindset. Any question or anything to add related to the PMI mindset before we go to the next? Anything to add, Rico?
No, I think is perfect. I would say assessing usually is very good whenever you have a situation before escalating, unless there's something that has to do with compliance or with market itself.
Yeah,
And servant leadership is usually used in agile, but you could use adaptive leadership for waterfall, but usually servant leadership is the way to go for PMI.
exactly. So now let's talk a little bit about the questions itself in the exam. How are the questions? The questions are situational question. What are situational question? It simply means that they are not going to ask you that, okay, what's the definition of project management? No, that's not a situational question. That's not the type of question that are going to ask you in the PMP. But they expect you to know the definition of a project, because they are going to put you in a situation where if you don't know the definition of project management, you won't be able to answer the question. So that's why I said the PMP is not a memorizing exam, but you have to memorize the definitions. You have to understand and know the definition. That's very important. So most questions are scenario based. They're going to give you a long scenario and they are going to give you some answers. One particularity about the PMP exam is that we are not talking here about wrong answers and correct answers, in the sense that you have four multiple choice questions, you have four multiple choice answers, and only one of the answers is correct, the three others are wrong. No, that's not the PMP. In the PMP, you can have all the four answers that are correct, but they want you to take the most correct answer. You can have all the four answers that even seem to be wrong, but they want you among those wrong answers to take the answer that seems to be the most correct one. Okay, so that's what makes the PMP to be a little bit difficult and challenging, because we are not here that they're not going to be asking questions. Okay, 1 plus 1 is equal to what? The only answer you can have in this situation is 2. But no, that's not the PMP. They are definitely not going to be ask you those type of questions. So it's important for you to understand, use some logic to eliminate the answers and choose the best answer among the different answers that were proposed to you. Reason why the context of a question really matters. It's very important that when you read your question, identify your keywords, understand the context very well, and then you can choose your best answer. If you don't understand the context, you can be misled, because all the answer may seem to be correct, but out of the context of the question, there is the best answer among all of them. Okay, so it's very important for you to always understand the context when you are answering your question. This being said, when reading your questions, read it carefully. You don't have enough time to spend while reading question. Nonetheless, you should read your questions carefully. Reason why you have to practice a lot. So now, the next thing is, I talked about reading PMP questions correctly. You have to read well your question. I also said you don't have enough time to be able to take all your time to read the question. So how do you do that? One strategy that you can use is to read the last sentence first, because the last sentence is the actual question. So before reading the long scenario, just go and read the question first, then you go and read the scenario. When you do that, since you already know the question that's going to be asked, you can easily identify in the scenario the information that are irrelevant, and you can easily identify the information that is relevant, and you can easily also identify the keywords when you already know the question. So this little trick can really help you to save a lot of time when you are reading your questions during the exam. So now, given that they are going to give you a situation, there's a lot of information that's useless. So it's very important for you to identify the actual problem that they are talking about in the question. Very important. Once you identify the actual problem that was described in the question, that's what is going to help you to easily identify the best answer. And I also talked about keywords. It's good to identify keywords because keywords will help you to know. For example, if we are talking about a hybrid project, if you are talking about an agile project, a waterfall project, okay. If I'm reading a question and I said, okay, in the beginning we had a complete plan for the project, that's a keyword. Those are keywords because it already helps me to understand that, hey, in this project we are talking about waterfall, and the type of answers that I have should be the answer that are related to waterfall. Because one of that trap that they generally do is that they will give you a project which is waterfall. They're not going to explicitly tell you that okay, this is waterfall. And in the answers, you're going to have some answers that apply only to agile projects. And they may seem to be correct, but given that you're in waterfall, that won't be the best answer for that question. So it's very important for you to understand the keyword, understand which project or which project management type that you have in this particular question, and even the phase in which you find yourself. If you're in the closing phase of the project, the answers is going to be different if you are in the initiation phase of the project. If you are in the execution phase of the project, the answers are going to be different if you are in the planning phase. Okay, so the keywords that you identify are definitely going to help you to understand that. Obviously, you have to understand if they are you're talking about stakeholders, the team impact, and avoid rushing into conclusions, because trust me, sometimes they put a lot of traps. Okay, you may decide to rush into the conclusion and you don't get it well. Okay, so that's what I could share with you when we talked about reading the PMP questions. So Rico, I'll just take a break here, and you can
Hmm.
add anything if you had to add anything, or present, give the different services that we offer in PMP routes.
Okay. So yeah, I would say regarding the questions, practice doing a lot of questions since you have to do about each question on average in 1 minute and 10 seconds. That would be a good advice. And regarding PMP route, if you need to do questions with a study buddy kind of thing, or a coach, or have accountability, a clear study plan, we can help you do that. Here we have the different options. I will send them in the chat. Basically, the premium version with everything included, the voucher, also the membership to the PMI, a good mock exam, a good course. Also, we have the PMP Mastery Accelerator that includes coaching and a course with all from an ATP. ATP is an authorized training partner, and it also includes a question bank of 2,000 questions. Why 2,000 questions? Most people have to do about 1,500 questions before getting ready. And also coaching for 340 US dollars, 8 sessions, 45 minutes. So I will share this with you in the chat, and you can reach out to William or to me via LinkedIn if you have any questions.
Okay, can I have your thumbs up to make sure that we are in phase?
Good.
Good, good. Thank you, Verona. Thank you, Millicent. I hope you guys are still seeing my screen.
Yeah, it is visible.
Okay, perfect. So I already talked about keywords. Sorry, I already talked a little bit about keywords. When you read your question, it's very important for you to be able to identify the keywords, because that's what's going to give you a certain direction on which answer is the best. And the objective of identifying keywords is to be able to know the project management type, is to be able to know the phase in which you are, is to be able to better understand the actual problem of the question. Okay, and for example, you can have a question where they tell, okay, what should the project manager do first? So what's the first thing that the project manager to do? What should the project manager do? What is the first thing that the project manager should do? Those, just that word first changes the question and changes the answer that you can have to that particular question. Okay, let me take a practical example. Generally, when they ask you, okay, what's the first thing that the project manager needs to do, they expect you to update your assets. Okay, if you are talking about risk, you go first of all, the first and foremost thing you have to do is to go and update your risk register. Okay, so it's for you to update your assets. when they tell you that, okay, what's the best thing you have to do, or what should the project manager do, generally the answer is, hey, let's go and do an assessment. Let's look for the root cause. Let's go and try to understand what actually happened. Okay, so very important for you to understand to identify the keywords and how they can influence the answer that you have at the end. So there are many keywords. It can be next, it can be most likely, it can be least, it can be except. Because sometimes they can be asking you, okay, what is the least likely thing that a project manager was supposed to do? And if you don't understand that well, you're going to go and take the best action that the project manager should have done. So it's very important to understand exactly what they're asking you, because sometimes they're asking you for the wrong answer and not the correct answer. So if you don't understand it well, you may be misled. So this comes back again to the fact that when reading your questions, understand the keyword, identify the keywords rapidly, and make sure you understand the questions that you are answering. And obviously, use logic. Okay, sometimes you have to use logic. If you have some difficulties, use your logic. Eliminate the obvious wrong answers, and if you are hesitating between just two answers, then you can reread again the question rapidly, and it can help you to identify the answer. And in the worst case scenario, never leave a question unanswered. You are not penalized for a wrong answer, so you have to answer all the questions. Okay, make sure you answer all the questions. And given that you are looking for the best answer, when you are able to eliminate one or two answers and you are left, for example, just with two answers, it's easy for you to compare both and identify which one is the best. But if you have to compare that with, if you have to compare four different answers simultaneously, it really becomes more difficult. So when you're answering your questions, just eliminate the extreme answer that you know, okay, this one can never be the answer. You may be left with just two, and you can focus on those two to understand which one is the best among those two answers. The next thing, which is very important, very important, is time management. You see this guy's warning? I don't want you to fall in this situation towards the end of your exam. Let's say you are left with 20 questions and you notice that, okay, you are left with just with 10 minutes. You start rushing. That's the worst thing that can happen to you. Okay, so you have to know how to manage your time. The exam is 3 hours 50 minutes with 10 minutes breaks after every 60 minutes. So the effective time that you're answering questions is 3 hours 50 minutes, which is 230 minutes. You have to answer 180 questions. So you should aim roughly about 75 seconds, that is 1 minute 15 seconds per question. Okay, avoid spending too much time on a single question. You can use flagging strategically, okay, because when you be writing your exam, you can flag some questions that you can come and check later on, but I'll give more emphasis on this. The exam is too long. So what makes some people to fail is because as the exam unfolds, they are no more swift, they are no more sharp, they cannot really think well again because their brain is tired. Okay, you really have to identify your own pace and know how you can pace yourself equally throughout the exam in such a way that you should not be having brain fatigue when you'll be reaching the end part of the exam. And please, as I said, they give you 10 minutes after every 60 questions. I always advise people to take the full 10 minutes, even when you are doing your mock exam. When you are doing your mock, when you are practicing your mock, use those 10 minutes to refresh. You get up because you are free to get up, leave the hall, go wheresoever you want, move, change the atmosphere, go and drink some water, and come back and continue with your exam. Now I will start by talking about practice pacing before exam day. You should be able to reach that level that you automatically have your pacing in your mind, okay, in such a way that you don't think about it, and that happens through practice. It really happens through practice, okay. Sorry for that. So it really happens through practice, okay. You are going to reach a level where you can easily know the pace at which you answer questions, because we said that you should spend about 1 minute 15 seconds per question. But obviously there are some questions that will be very cheap, very simple, so you can just handle that in 30 seconds, in 45 seconds. But there are other questions that's going to take you a little bit more time. So when you be practicing more often, you will be able to have that internal clock in you that will help you to know if you are on time, out of time, and make sure that you follow that very well. So now I talked about flagging strategically. Please avoid trying to revise the previous questions you answered. I always advise people, read the question, give your best answer, move on, and don't come back to it. If you come and check your answers later, your brain is already more tired than it was when you were answering the question, and there's a high probability that you end up choosing the wrong answer. So if there's a question that you just think that you just forgot the answer, okay, you can flag it, move on, hoping to come back to it. But if you have already answered the question with your best abilities, please just move on and forget about it and continue your exam. No need to come and be revising your questions to check if you took the best answer. No, don't do that. Just be going. So answer the questions with your best ability during the first attempt, knowing that you won't come back to it. But now if you just notice that, okay, there's one definition that I forgot but I know it, that's when you can flag, move on, and later on you can come and handle the question later. Obviously we talked about practicing question in the previous slide. Make sure that you practice, you have to practice a lot. But now you're not just going to be answering questions and just be moving. No, answer questions, revise the answer, read the feedback that you have from the question that were wrong, the question that were correct, and make sure you understand it very well. One tip that I always give people is that once you fall on a particular topic in a question, make sure that you revise everything related to that topic, okay. For example, if you fall on a question that's talking about SPI, scheduled performance indicators, it's a good opportunity for you to go and revise all the performance indicators that we have in the PMP. That's the best way that I found to be able to learn all the things that you need to know for the PMP. So when you are practicing, make sure that you revise the questions that you failed, even the questions that you answered well, and make sure you understand it very well. And if you fall on a particular topic, take your time to revise everything that's related to that topic for the PMP exam, and put yourself in real exam conditions, okay. Have your clock, have everything. Okay, so we are going to talk a little bit about the common errors that people generally have. The first thing is reading the PM book repeatedly without applying what you read. It's not important for you to do that. Memorizing instead of understanding. We talked about that. That's a mistake that people generally do. Ignoring agile concepts. From my experience, I think agile and hybrid, it's like 60 to 70% of the exam. So make sure that you understand those concepts very well. Studying without practicing, it's not good. Practice more, and you can study what you are missing. And while studying what you are missing, make sure that you always practice. Switching resources constantly, living from one resource to another, that's not a good idea. And also, waiting too long before booking your exam is not a very good idea. It's always very important for you to dedicate yourself to the PMP, put in the necessary energy, and make sure that you validate it at once, because your learning curve is going to be increasing. It's going to reach a peak, and at a certain point you are going to be reducing. So if you miss that peak point, it may be difficult for you to be able to pass your exam, and you're going to waste a lot of time and a lot of energy. So make sure you avoid these errors. So before we close this session, we are going to talk to answer a question together. This an equation, for example. You If I want to read this question, I see that the situation is like three sentences. So before reading the situation, I'll read the question. Who makes business decision on agile projects? I know the question already. So I'll go and read the situation. You will be leading an agile project. The goal of the project is to optimize organizational workflow and reduce cost by at least 30%. Since everybody will be affected by this project, you need to consider a big number of project stakeholders. Now that I already know the question, that who makes business decisions on agile, while reading all this situation, I understand that this information is not vital for me to be able to answer the question. So I will just read it very fast. During the project, you will need some business decision to be taken. Who makes business decision on agile? So you understand that this 30%, for example, is not a keyword here. You'll be leading an agile project. Okay, here agile project is a keyword. The goal is to optimize blah blah blah. All these are not keywords. They are not even important for me to be able to answer the question. So hiding the question helps me to know that I'm not going to waste much time here. And in this particular case, the person that takes decisions when we are in an agile project is the product owner. So the answer here is product owner. Um, yeah, let's just answer this last question before I will just give you guys the floor. So here, I will still start by reading the question itself. Which of the following is not change friendly characteristic for organizations beginning to use agile approaches? You have been hired as an agile expert for an organization that is in transition phase from predictive to agile approach in project management. So for me here, transition phase is a keyword. Living from predictive to agile. The organization has recently embarked upon the agile journey. Which of the following is not a change friendly characteristic for organization beginning to use agile? Executive management commitment, talent management maturity and capabilities, focus on short-term budgeting and metrics versus long-term goals, existence of departmental silos. In this particular case, the question is what stops people from changes, okay? And one of the big things that will stop people from changing is the existence of departmental silos, okay? So the right answer that we have for this particular question is D. Yeah, so this is the end of the presentation. Any question? Do you have any question, Millicent?
Not really. My biggest problem is reacting too quickly because my job
Yeah,
reacts, right? So,
yeah, yeah.
being doing produce, we find a problem, you react, right? So that's my biggest downfall, and I do know it, and I have to slow down, right? And stop jumping to the action versus the assess, analyze kind of thing, right? So that's my biggest problem.
Yeah, exactly. That's a challenge that project managers with a lot of experience, especially those that are in fields that are in fast environment fields, they generally face that challenge because in practice, when there's a problem, you rush to the solution to make sure that everything stays on the lane, okay. But the PMI says no, 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 don't rush, okay. Don't
Hmm.
rush, okay. Take your time to
Hmm.
assess the situation, update your assets, update your
Hmm.
documentations, analyze the situation, and now from there, with your team, you can set a plan of action. So yeah, you should really take some time to learn more about the PMI mindset, and obviously we can definitely help you with that. Anything to add, Rico?
Well, I really like the question you brought about who makes the business decisions
Hmm.
related to stakeholders, because just by reading the question, that was the other one, I think.
Yeah, the
Uh,
first one,
the
I
first
think.
one, if you only read the question, you know, is the product owner who makes the business decisions on Agile. Is the You don't have to even read the rest.
No,
So I like that one because it's very
Yeah,
clear that just reading the
it,
last thing is all you need.
the only thing is if you don't know your quote unquote definitions, people make choose customer,
Yes.
right? Because,
exactly.
right? So if you don't know your definitions, it's people would say, well, the customer is the one that makes the business decisions, right? But that's if you don't know your definitions, right? So,
Exactly. So it comes back to what we're saying. PMP is not a memorizing exam, but you have to know your definitions.
hmm.
Very, very important. Thank you for that contribution.
Yeah.
Okay, this being said, I wish you guys a nice evening and thank you for taking part into this session. I really hope that you had a nice time. See you next time. Next Thursday, same time, we are going to have another session. So feel free to join.
Thank you,
Thank you.
William.
Okay, thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.